Let me just start. Okay, recording. We are basically. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So there's this little demo thing I put together. It's kind of jank, but there's a little guy and you just run around and that's it. So
Oh, that's cool.
uh, what's nice about
Oh,
it is you learn a little bit about tile sets, which is not relevant to the 3D work, but it shows you sort of how to get around the Godot editor. And then sprite sheets are kind of fun. So
no.
I will link the so here's the source for today. And then specifically here's where you can get the sprite sheets I'm using. They're from OpenGameArt. I need to credit them properly. But the sprite sheets are here and this one.
Are you gonna go over like how much um physics stuff are you gonna go over?
Not a ton. There's one, so we're going to use a kinematic body and then kind of do our own physics with delta time. And there's this thing called moving and sliding, which is, I like, because in Unity you have to do it yourself, but Godot has this nice way of auto. Basically what
Which
it
one do
is, yeah.
which one do I download the characters or?
You don't have to use them, but if you'd like to, they are in this folder here. So there's characters.png and then sheet9.png.
Oh, sheet 9.
Yeah,
Sheet
and that
9.
one's the tile set. Let me see if I can find. It came from OpenGameArt. Oh, where was it? It was one of these. I think it was this one. Yeah, this is the one. So if you want all the resources, there they are.
I might just I'll see if I can follow along. I'm swamped with homework.
Yeah, and also you can just you don't if you want to just have this on in the background, that's fine. It's more of a because I think you've used Godot before, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're probably fine. This is a very simple overview.
Doesn't hurt to refresh my memories.
And we are recording right now, so it'll be, you know,
Oh, sweet. Okay.
this will be available for watching back. I wonder where everybody is. Let me see. There's a chance. Malik might be a little delayed. I am also swamped with homework, so I do appreciate your your conundrum. I figure in some ways, since we are recording, people can maybe just watch back stuff, but I'll give it one more look. Oh, Jennifer might be coming online in a sec. Let's just see if Jennifer comes on.
Oh boy, here's my little game of trying to find where I put my Godot
I
.exe.
know, because it doesn't, you don't have to install it, so it just kind of goes wherever.
Yeah, I don't. Well, let's look around for it. I just used it like a month ago, and I don't remember.
Hey, Jennifer.
Hello.
Hello. So we can, I think this is everybody. So I was just explaining to Pedro, that we've got this little demo, which is the source is linked to in the Discord chat. But just a little bit of stuff with like delta time and tile sets and physics and nodes and just getting around the editor and also a little bit of scripting. Basically, the art comes from here, so there's a link to that. And in particular, if you just want the ones that I was using, there's this characters.png and sheet 9, and those are both available. And then if you get lost, you can clone this. That's fine. And I'll probably be referencing it, honestly, because I don't quite remember how I did all this. But basically, so if you've got Godot, the first thing we'll do is just make, this is Godot 3.5. I put them in just as special. Is it not here? Oh, never mind. I'm thinking of my laptop, but that's okay. Documents are fine, so we can just say platformer tutorial. And I'm gonna do it, if you're gonna make something for web, better to use the older version of OpenGL. Little easier to run. This is a 3D scene, obviously, but the demo I was showing you is 2D. And so all we do is we pick your root node, you just go 2D instead of 3D, and suddenly we're on a canvas. And there's the 0 point of the canvas. So in Godot, it's important to note that the negative direction is up. So if you have a Y coordinate and you want to move up the screen, you actually decrease. So the upper left is 0, 0. And this is this blue line, which you can barely see, is the bounds of the canvas, basically. And if you play, can I? Oh, I did not save it. Okay, so we're gonna save this just for now as level. And if we play, you'll just see we get that empty window. And so the bounds of this window match the blue here. Although it is, this should be resizable. The important thing to note in Godot is there's no, because I know you guys all have Unity background, there's no distinction in Godot between a scene and a prefab. Everything is just a scene. And in fact, the way Godot documentation tells you to think about it is if you imagine scenes as classes in like Java or C#, you basically can give them members and you compose objects out of scenes. And for this level, so for example, what you would do here, we have a level to start, but we're also going to want to make a player scene. And what you can eventually do once we define the player is you can drag them in and you build things up that way. So the first thing we can do maybe is just get some resources into the engine. So I'm going to make a folder called assets. And you can basically whatever platform you're on, just go to open in file manager. And I've got it in Windows. And I need to steal these images. So I've got my characters over here. Can I save it? Yeah, okay, there we go. And so I guess I've already made this before. Too many folders. So here's one. And then here is the other one. So one is a tile set, one is a sprite sheet. The difference is just that in a sprite sheet, all those individual pictures get put together in a flipbook and they're in an animation on the tile set. It's used for building out level geometry, I guess, or not even geometry, but building out levels. And you'll see that Godot automatically imported both of these things. And you can, if you want, just drag them in as sprites, and that's fine. But that's not how we want to use them. So we have to prepare these properly. So first thing is like if you drag one of these in and you zoom in, you'll notice that bilinear filtering is being applied, so they're kind of blurry. You can actually turn that off if you go to this import tab. What you do is filter, you turn it off and do re-import. And now it turns off the bilinear filtering and it's perfect, pixel perfect. So that's good for pixel art. And you have to do that. There are ways you can configure Godot to automatically turn off filtering, but for now we're just gonna, since there's only 2 textures, we're gonna do it ourselves. So with level, if we go to node 2D, we can also rename nodes. So this is just the default name. Let's call it level. We want to add a child node. And what we're going to look for is called a tile map. And even though in our own project, we're probably not going to use these, it's just good to get a sense of how the inspectors work and everything. Over here on the right, you'll see that tile maps can be given a tile set, which we don't have yet. So you go here and you click new tile set. And now what we got to do is you can actually drill down. So the tile map knows that the tile set is its child. You click that. And now we're over here. And this is maybe what's most confusing is this window on the bottom. Now we can start adding textures that we want to use for tiling. And we need to zoom in. Now what we can do is single tile just adds in like individual tiles one by one, which is not what we want. We want to make an atlas, which is a whole group of tiles. And if we click this little magnet, it snaps everything into place. We need to configure, I just happen to know ahead of time that all these tiles are 16 pixels by 16 pixels. And so this step size here, 32 pixels, is way too big. So we can drop that down. And I think we're fine. We don't have to play with the offset. Now there's something cool you can do, which is, if you go to edit, there we go. Okay. Yeah. Did I not do that? Okay, yeah. So what I've done is I've set up a grid, but I haven't made tiles yet. So if I make a new atlas and I click and I drag, now I'm defining tiles over all of these things. And then the last step is you can actually assign collision shapes to individual tiles. So what I'm going to do is if you click collision, you can go to this square button, Shift R, you click and you can change the size, I think, if you want. But all I'm going to do is for all the tiles that I want to be able to use as ground, I'm just going to do Shift R. Did that work? I'm forgetting myself. No, I think I'm doing duplicates now. Oh, don't do that. Okay, so what you do is you click the tile you want, and then you do Shift R. You click the next tile, and you do Shift R. You click the next tile, and you go Shift R, and it's kind of annoying. So I'll just do these, I think, and then just for kicks, we can do, and I did a double there, which is not good. And then all this other stuff that we don't assign a collision shape to, we won't be able to touch. And that's fine, because the signs are just, and the rocks are decorative. So now if we, I think technically, oh, that's interesting. So I think this is, unless you save it explicitly, it just sort of lives inside of the scene. You can see the little star, we haven't saved it. But now that we've done this, we can go back in the inspector to tile map. And all of a sudden, if we click right here, you can see we have all these tiles available. And we can start, if we want, painting. So again, this is this blue thing is the boundary of our level. Uh-oh. Now I've messed up again. We have to go to cell. And here, everything is 64 pixels. But again, these are just 16. So let's see, is that correct? Yeah, there you go. Now there's one other problem, which is this is way too small. And if we run it in the editor, we're going to see that it looks like that. So we want to be zoomed in a bit. Luckily, there's a node. You can either do custom cameras or you can use one that is just afforded for you. There's a node called Camera 2D. And what you can do with that is set a zoom level. So I think what I did last time is 3 or 4. That. Oh, okay. So bigger zoom, yeah. Bigger zoom is a zoom out. So set it to a decimal value, like 0.25. Go back to the tile map. You can delete all of these with a right click. But if we zoom in here, now if we paint these tiles, it'll look a little bit better. The one thing I want to do is maybe, this is fine. Yeah. So we'll paint a layer of tiles, and then you can paint the dark bit. Does not have a collision shape. Maybe just a sign for fun, and something to jump on top of later. So if you save that, you can run it. Oops, what we forgot to do is to set this camera explicitly to current. And then we get this rectangle right here. There's one other problem we're going to notice, which is it looks great right now, but if I resize the canvas, see how I get this bleed in between tiles? That's because there's some texture sampling going on and there's rounding errors, and so we're getting mismatched pixels. And the way you fix that, this is very specific. There's a couple ways of fixing it, but the easiest way is you go to, I think it's under quality, and you go to filter mode. Nope, not that one. It's called, what you do, basically you take the UV coordinates and you shrink them slightly. And I am 2D, there we go. Okay, yeah. Snapping, pixel snap, that's one way of doing it. And this is not super important. 2D render? No. So, well, try this. Try turning on pixel snap. And that's one way of trying to fix it. Yeah, good enough. Yeah, that did it. So that's not exactly what I did last time, but in Godot, there's a bunch of different ways of solving things. So that one little setting fixes that. So now we've got a level, and if we go to the tile map, you can actually hit show collision, and you'll see that everything in blue is going to register as ground once we write our character. So now you can switch over to player, and we're going to do slightly different workflow, which is to make a sprite. So rename the character node to player explicitly, and then you can add a child node, and it's going to be called an animated sprite. And you'll notice there's a warning, which is telling us that we need to actually have a sprite to display. So you can go here to frames and make new sprite frames. And you dig down, look at those frames. And now it's a little similar to the last thing we did. We need to open up texture, go to assets, we take our characters. And then I happen to know from last time that all these guys they fit inside of a 32 by 32 pixel bounding box. So what you gotta do next is something which I've forgotten. Okay. Yeah. So I opened an image directly. What I needed to do was open a sprite sheet. So watch this. If I click this and I do the same thing, now we get this whole other editor, which lets us segment our sheet. So delete that other frame, go to the grid, open this up. We know that the size of our pixels character is 32 by 32 pixels. And they're not separated at all. So I think that's good. And then what you got to do is select the character frames that we need to use. And if I'm remembering right, I think it's these ones. And then what happens is you can actually, there's a way to see, here you go. This guy right here, if you click on him in the editor, you go and you have to click on playing. Now he moves. And you can play with the playback speed. So you could say that actually he goes at, you could make him 3 times as fast. And for us though, I think what I did was 10, something like that. And it looks a little wonky. I think I may have selected maybe the wrong frames, but that's okay. What you want to do now is, since it's a character, this little crosshair, that's the 0, 0 point. It should be about, his feet should be at the 0, 0 point. The last thing to do, where we're all set, is right now there's no way for this guy to test out colliding with ground tiles. So we need another child node, and we're going to call it kinematic body 2D. So rigid bodies, like in Unity, those can have forces applied. Static bodies, they don't move, they just trigger collisions. A kinematic body can move, but it doesn't have forces. We're going to use a kinematic body. And again, we have a warning, and the warning is going to tell us that our kinematic body has no collision shape, no bounding box. So what we got to do is go to a child node, and then we will look for collision shape polygons. Those can have arbitrary points. We just need a primitive. We're going to do a box collider, and we're going to see another warning, which is we don't actually have a shape defined. So we're going to click on rectangle, and then we go to this rectangle. You can actually scale it. And with these sorts of things, it's good if the bounding box is actually just a little bit smaller than your character, to be slightly more forgiving. So that's good. That's our character. That's it. Now we get to start scripting. So now you go back to level, and we can import player over here. So we take our scene, and we drag him in. Now we're ready to go. And save that and hit play. And there's our little guy. And we're ready to start programming. So everybody good so far? More or less?
More or less.
More or less, yeah. We could always watch this back. But so now we get to go to a whole new window. So player, this little script button. It's important to know in Unity, a game object can have as many components as you want. In Godot, each node can only have one script. So the way you would have multiple components is you would have multiple child nodes with one script each. So we only need just the one. So click this. And I'm just going to leave it as player.gd. That's fine. Inherits from... Actually, I want... Okay, yeah, no, this is fine. This is good. So click, or do I? Wait. before we do this, I'm actually going to re-architect. So I'm going to invert this node structure. I'm going to take the animated sprite and I'm going to put it inside the kinematic body or the collision shape. Is that okay? Did that work out? There we go. Okay. And then I'm actually going to move this. Can I do that? Can I make this the root node? There we go. Yeah, I did this the wrong way. You don't need that empty node. So the 2D node doesn't have to be the root, because all these other nodes actually extend from node 2D. Name this player. Hit save, and if we go back to the other level, it should. Yep. Yeah, and you can drill down. Okay, there you go. What we're gonna do is we're gonna make a new script. And what's important about this script is it extends from kinematic body 2D, which lets us have access to some of the physics functions. So just the very first thing as you're looking at this, you might notice it looks a lot like Python. The main difference being that instead of saying def, you say func for a function. Here's an example of member variable declaration. We are going to actually, so something important in GDScript is there is a weak type enforcement. So it's fine to say like health equals 5. That's fine, that's valid. You do have to prefix it with the word var. But here's what happens if you do that and you say health equals 6, like that, that's valid, which is a problem because you've now changed the type and your functions that are expecting numbers aren't gonna have that. So what you can do is you can say health is an integer, like that. And now we get an error, and that'll be enforced. Instead of typing out int, what you can actually do, and I think this is what people usually recommend, is you can infer the type like this. So you're setting the number 5 to health, and GDScript is smart enough to tell that it's a number. So now, and if I add a decimal, you'll notice the error message will change to float. And I think floats have 32 bits of precision, either 32 or 64. But so when you are doing stuff, I would suggest defining things with the colon equals. We don't need health. We are going to need something called velocity. And we're going to set it to something called vector2, which is the same as Unity's vector, the 0 vector. I'm going to say a 0 speed. Like Unity, there is an update function for the game loop. Here, instead of update, it's called process. And like Unity, there's also a fixed update, so a version of update for physics logic, and we're gonna call that func physics process. There you go. Now say pass. And kinematic bodies, the first thing to know is, just for example, this is a little bit repetitive, but you could say velocity dot x equals here's an important distinction. We're going to do it in terms of delta time. So we're going to say 32 pixels per second. And so then what we do in physics process, much like in Unity, we take the position, which is inherited from kinematic body 2D. That's where that's exposed. And we add to it velocity, just the vector, multiplied by delta. No, that's fine. That's valid. So if we do that and we save that and we run this, if I haven't messed up, you'll see there goes our little guy. He's running away. So naturally, the next thing is how do we control velocity via input mechanisms? So much like Unity, there's an input module for Godot. Luckily, it's not a separate package you have to download. It's just here. So you go to Project Settings, then you go to Input, and there's a bunch of things already for UI. So we're going to add some actions. So one is going to be move left. One is going to be move right. One is going to be jump. That's all we need. And then you can add keys. So for left, we're just going to hit left. Okay. And if you want, you can also add WASD, WASD. I'm just going to do arrow keys for now. There's right. And then for jump, I'm going to do up. You might be wondering what the difference between the key versus the direct mapping is. And that's like, so in a language keyboard, like a German keyboard, the Z and the Y are swapped versus the American keyboard. And so the key codes are going to point to different letters. And this is just, are you using the key code to reference a key on the keyboard, or are you using the mapped letter, which can be different, usually the same, but are sometimes different. Yeah, you can close that. That'll save it. I'm not sure when project settings save. I think you have to do it manually. So you can handle input two ways. You can either do it via a callback, and I think it's on, maybe it's input event. I don't remember, but there's a way to do a callback, and you get an input object, and you can read that. The simpler thing to do, what we're going to do, is just say if input dot what was it? Now I forget. Action. Yeah. Okay. There's a couple. Is key. I'm gonna do the key pressed. I think that's the one. Or no, I'm not gonna do that. Is action pressed. And now it gives us conveniently a number of actions. So here's like the left one. GDScript is basically Python, except that the math library doesn't have to be imported and vectors are supported out of the box. So if input action pressed, you just take velocity.x. And here, what I would recommend, there's a simple way. So if you want to, how much time do we have? So this velocity times delta thing, you can also do that with acceleration. So let's say var h acceleration and set that to like 100 pixels per second per second. And what you would do here is just increment velocity the same way you would the delta. So you would take h acceleration times time step times instead of the velocity vector, what you would do is you say vector2 dot left. That. And we can look at velocity clamping later, but at that for this demo, it's not. And then basically you just do the same thing for the right key, except that instead of incrementing by the left directional vector, you do by the right directional vector. And I forgot my colon. I've been writing in Ruby for one of my classes, and that also looks like Python, but there's no colons after if statements. And then the very last thing would be, let's define gravity, and we'll let that be like, what I should have actually said probably is like 96 is a nicer, power of two numbers are a little bit better. Velocity, we don't need that. And then, whoa. And there's a way to write jump speeds so that they are calculated pixel perfectly to how high you want to jump. That's in the example project if you want to take a look at the code for it, but For us, let's just give it a random value. So then here's a different thing. If input.isAction just pressed. And what did I do? Oh, yeah, and you can't have empty function bodies. You have to have, if you want an empty function body, you have to use the word pass. Is input action just pressed. And we'll say jump. And then here we'll say velocity dot y minus, well, actually you can either do, let's keep with the convention we were using. So we'll add, also I've made a mistake. You can get rid of these dot x's. Velocity is a vector, we're adding a vector to it. So that's fine. So velocity plus equals jump speed. So you can either do it this way, times vector 2 dot up, and that has certain implications, or you can do -1 times jump speed and just set the y coordinate directly. And for right now, I'm gonna leave that way. So one is like instantaneous velocity change for the jump, where you just sort of go boop, it's like an impulse, and the other one is a gradual acceleration. Now what you're going to see though is we've forgotten a couple things. We haven't implemented gravity, and we also haven't implemented collisions. So what I can do is, let's just put in gravity. So velocity, just literally plus equals gravity times delta times vector 2 dot. And now that's basically our physics engine, but again, without collision. So if we play it, there goes our guy, and he kind of works. He's got the sort of way too slow, he doesn't accelerate well at all, and his vertical speed is not clamped, but that's okay. So now here's the little bit of magic, which is, I think I like this more than in Unity, because in Unity I always had to do this myself. But basically what you can do is Godot has a function called move slide. And what that lets you do this might look a little strange, but it is kind of a magic thing. Move and slide basically takes your kinematic body with its bounding box and moves it forward along the vector you pass. And if there's a collision, it gives you the collision normal, and then it moves your body outside of the collision and then along the direction you would have been going to the best of. So like if you're going forward and falling at the same time and you hit a wall, you will just fall down the wall instead of going through the wall. But it's easier to just show you. So we do that, save it, and theoretically, I think we should have physics. So now he's not falling through the ground, and he can't go through the walls. And if he jumps, there, okay, yeah. So basically, we just made a really shitty platformer in like 30 lines of code, which is crazy. And it looks way more elegant than anything you can do in Unity. Quality of life thing is like the jump speed is way too high, so let's make it like 3/4 of what it was. And we can even crank up the horizontal acceleration, but we want to have maybe max h speed, and we could say we don't want this guy to go farther than 2 tiles in a second. So what you can do there is say velocity dot x equals, this is where it's cool. You can just do clamp. You don't have to reference anything. You just do clamp. And you pass in the value you want to clamp. And then you pass in your minimum, which would be -1 times max h speed, and then just positive max h speed, I think. And if you save that and run that, then I believe, yeah. Now the guy can't, he's a little bit too slow maybe, but he accelerates nicely. And we haven't done anything. There's another function called, right now you can do infinite double jumps. There's another function called is on ground. I don't think I've used before, but we can maybe try. You just say is on floor. There we go. Okay. You have to do it. I think that's it. Godot has all these little convenience things, and this is similar. It just, I wrote it myself by accident, but and now currently we are not on the floor, and that's okay. So I don't know how that gets calculated, but basically what you can do is there's another thing which is move and slide, and we're coming up. We actually have a bit of time, but Pedro needs to go, so maybe we can just end early. There's move and slide, but there's also get. What was it? So there's all these things. Collision. No. Slide. Yeah. Get slide count. And then what you do is you say collisions, I think, or yeah, I got to declare it this way. And then what you can do is you can iterate for C in collisions. What you do is, I think I can do that. All right, C dot, it's like, this probably isn't gonna work. I will look at, so let me just show you the code that I wrote for the finished version, which is a little bit more complicated. What you, oh, I'm sorry. Let me go get that. That's the 9 o'clock alarm. So you can see this thing down here is where we were doing the collision check. So Godot has a way to automate that for you. And then if you're curious, here's a little physics function that lets you define a jump height, and but that's kind of extra credit. But even this is like, still, it's a little bit long. It's like maybe 2 or 3 times as long as what we've already written, but you can basically, whenever I work with Godot, I'm always surprised by how terse you can be. Like, you don't have to write verbose code. You can write a little bit of code and it gets a lot done. So, but that's it for here. The only other thing I would say is if you want to distribute your game, you can go to, it's under export. It's a little bit complicated at the, by default, exports are not included in your build, so you have to manually define them. Here I've already installed HTML5 on my system. If you don't do that, there's an easy way to do that yourself. What you need to do, there is a setting for, okay, release. Yeah, this isn't totally clear. What I like to do is I like to make a folder called, nope. There's usually a way. What I'll do is I'll make a new folder. I like to call it builds. And then you can call it for each platform, you just make a folder for it. And I don't need a template. What I need is not the shell. What I need is not a page. I need resources. No, I'm sorry. It's like export path. Yeah, that's what I meant. So you just do that. And you can call it index HTML. And then if you do export all, just do it as a release. If you go and look, it builds really, really fast. It built basically instantly. All of a sudden, you've got all this stuff right here. And theoretically, I don't think, yeah, okay. So you can't run these things locally. You have to use a server. So the last thing we can do is I'll just show you how to test. You go to command prompt and go to, let me just make sure. So you'll need Python. Okay. That work? Okay, then I'm gonna go to documents and to and I'm on Windows instead of a Mac, which is annoying. Oh my. Let me get that path. Go. So you can do this, and then Python has this nice little thing. I think it's called HTML. Is this it? No. Sorry. Gonna do some Googling. Python 3 simple HTTP server. Oh, okay. Yeah. It's really simple. You go to the directory that you want and you just do this command. Python not found. Sorry. Okay. Yeah. On this machine, you don't need that. And now it's listening on port 8000 and you go to localhost and it loads and there's our game on the web. Or not on the web, but when you, and you can also, so what I'm doing over here is if you click this, it's just inside of GitHub pages. Same deal. That's it. That's all I've got. So if you guys have any questions or want me to repeat anything, happy to.
I mean, I don't want to keep it too long. So I could access the recording. Although, could you go over again how you set up? I was following along and then got stuck really fast with the tile sets because I forgot how to set up the tile sets correctly again.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. So you go to tile at which part?
Yeah, the tile set for the background.
Background. Okay.
Yeah, the tile map.
Tile map. So did you get the tile set right?
Yeah.
Okay. Then what you do, so you're saying the offset, you had the wrong offset maybe?
Maybe
Like the
16,
cell size?
16. That looks about what I think.
Margin size. Are you in
16.
square mode? Do you have this? Do you have these things? The tile library to click on?
No, I can't pull that up as each. Oh yeah, how do you?
So you have to
how'd you
make
get the
sure
tile
that do you have your, which tile set do you have?
None right now. I'm trying to make the new one.
Okay. Yeah. So what you can do is just go here and do new tile set. And then once you've done that, you have to add a texture.
Oh, add text. That's what I'm missing. Yep.
And then
Figured
it gets a little bit more confusing. You do new atlas and you drag over the period, over the space that you want to use as tiles.
Wait, repeat that.
I will do it here. Let's try. Let me just make a new resource, new tile set. I'll make a new tile set. It's a bit messy. So what you do is this square right here, add texture, and then you go click the thing. Now what you got to do is new atlas, and you can make sure the magnet is on. So you got this grid, and then you just click and drag. And then the last thing you do is tiles that you want to be solid, to have collisions on. You have to click on them.
Wait, I think I missed some. Yeah, because my tile set is coming out. My grid is not offset correctly.
There's a way. So if you go right, so in snap options, set it to 16 and 16. Try that.
Where's the snap option?
It's on the, if you go to inspector, tile set, editor, context.
Uh,
And that should let you change things around.
Wait. How do you access it again? Tile map, tile set.
Mm-hmm. And then inside of the inspector.
Huh, weird. It's not showing up for me.
Do you see the actual, do you have this window with the tile
Yeah,
set?
I have that window.
Try, did you expand it?
Yeah, there's just no snap options. That's weird.
Does it say,
I'll double check.
what does it say, offset? Or no
it doesn't say
snap
any.
options.
I'll just check. I'll just
Okay.
look around. It's actually no big.
Okay. But that should be, you can modify that there.
All right.
Yeah. But that's Godot. It's kind of, and also one thing is you might get stuck if you're in the script window. You have to make sure you go back to the 2D window, and there's also the 3D window. But there's nothing in there. So, and 3D is basically exactly the same. There's basically duplicate. 3D is colored in red. It's basically all the same as 2D, just in a re-implemented in 3 dimensions. Not too bad. And then one other thing would be like if you needed to reference a specific there's a thing in GDScript where if I needed to get my animated sprite, so if I wanted to start and stop the sprite, you would say it like this. You can reference nodes directly this way. And is that allowed? On ready var. On ready. Okay, yeah, there's also a difference. Okay, yeah. So there's a whole bunch of lifecycle stuff I haven't talked about, which includes things like variables that get initialized when a scene initializes versus these variables up here, which are just static constant values. Those are just fixed, but on ready means it'll get assigned when the scene starts, and you have access to all the node properties. So one of them is like I think it's called speed or active. No, was it playing? Playing. Okay. So one easy thing you can do is go to, say, so you could say if velocity dot, let's do it this way. We'll just say animated sprite dot playing equals velocity dot. Let's find distance, length, limit length. Let's try. I think it's length. I hope it's length versus distance. Let's do length. Yeah. Velocity dot length is greater than 0. And that should actually let us. Yeah, so guy is not moving. Guy is moving. And then when he slows down, guy is not moving. Guy is moving. Guy is not moving. It doesn't work because, yeah, you know, it's in the. You could do velocity.x, velocity.y, but basically that's this $sign thing is shorthand for getting a node property. If you had multiple animated sprites, then you would have to do get node, get child, get children, and that starts to look a little bit like get component inside of Unity. Yeah, that's all I've got. So, anything else, or should we call it there?
Can't think of any. I mean, obviously, I think we would be using the states for animation. I'm assuming just
Yeah,
but that's kind of more confusing. So
yeah, yeah, some kind of state machine for sure. Yeah. Well, I'll stop the stream.
I think Godot has the built-in thing similar to Unity's, but slightly different.
I think you're right. Yeah, there are ways to do state machines pretty easily.